All right. Welcome back to the Wrench Factor, the show about what actually works on the plant floor and what's changing in maintenance, reliability, and operations. Today, we're talking about machine health, but not from the usual angle. We're not going to spend this episode defining vibration monitoring or explaining predictive maintenance basics. We're going to look at machine health as a business strategy. For a lot of manufacturers, the conversation has shifted from can we detect failures earlier to how do we make machine health part of how the business runs? That means leadership alignment, culture change, AI that actually delivers value, enterprise scale, and preserving the knowledge that keeps the plant running. I'm your host today, Nick Haase, co-founder of MaintainX, and I'm super excited to welcome Elan Greenberg, the CEO of Augury. Elan leads Augury, an industrial AI company focused on transforming how people and machines work together. Before Augury, he was the COO of Flock Safety, an early GM at DoorDash, and he began his career as a U.S. Marine. Thanks for your service, Elan, and welcome to the Wrench Factor.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate having me on.
Yeah. So you've had an interesting path from Marines, DoorDash, Flock Safety, and now Augury. What drew you into industrial AI and machine health, and why now?
Totally. Well, first and foremost, really appreciate you having me on the show and giving me the chance to talk a little bit about Augury and some of our customers and our technology. For me, the biggest draw for industrial AI was really the chance to serve those folks that are working on the front lines at industrial sites and manufacturing facilities all around the world. Augury has this footprint in 40 different countries on 6 different continents, serving every potential subsector of manufacturing, heavy industry, metals, mining, oil, gas, energy, et cetera, and coming up with tools and ways for them to perform their jobs more effectively and more efficiently, give them the tools they need to be successful. That was really what motivated me. I love the business model, I love the team, and I knew that we had a tremendous amount of potential to go build over the coming years.
I love that. Now, a lot of companies still think of predictive maintenance as like a maintenance or reliability initiative. You guys sort of taken a different approach and maybe broadened the umbrella. And why should machine health be a C-suite priority?
For sure. So machine health is really about using the data that exists at every manufacturing site, every industrial site within your corporate portfolio to frankly just get ahead of problems and make better decisions. What we've found across our customers is that when programs like these are designed and deployed and implemented in the best possible way, you start to see the outcomes of programs like these become C-suite priorities, because the outcomes are things like increasing your yield, reducing your energy consumption, improving your profitability. And if you're a chief operating officer or a chief financial officer, or frankly, a chief executive officer, success with machine health programs, production health programs, these are things that allow you to increase your top line, improve your bottom line, and meet your own customer expectations wherever they happen to be.
I love that. In a lot of conversations I have, maintenance teams know the pain of downtime better than anyone, but they're not always given the language or the data to make that pain visible at the executive level. What is it about the way that you all approach that challenge that helps reliability leaders communicate machine health in terms that the CFO or the COO or CEO is going to care about?
Yeah, I think one of the really unique things about the approach that Augury has taken is that we're really mindful of who our customers are and who our users are. So thinking about who our users are, the folks that are engaging with Augury and Augury solutions each day, you have maintenance technicians, you have reliability professionals, you have process engineers, you have folks that are physically on the front lines of manufacturing and industrial operations who have to have trust in the solution that you've built and how it works, or else frankly, they're not going to adopt it. And I think one of the places where Augury has really differentiated itself is invested the time and the money and the resourcing in making sure that the diagnostics that we're able to surface from our solution are the most accurate diagnostics that exist out there in the world. And we think that our users actually see that. So that's kind of one piece of it. But then, it's the users that are physically engaging with our solution and our tools day to day. But oftentimes the users are part of a broader customer. That customer can be a multinational company with sites and users all around the world, right? And those customers are sometimes investing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into a solution like this one. They also have to be able to glean the insights that these solutions are offering. So on one hand, we think about the users who are engaging with that data and those tools every day. And then on the flip side, we think about how do we work with our customers to best ascribe value to the investment that they've chosen to make with Augury so they can consistently start to see those returns on investment. And working with our customers, and we've had this validated outside in, and we see this time and again with our customers, anywhere from 3 to 10 to 15 times ROI, which can mean all of the difference in whether you actually hit the profitability goals of your site or of the corporate entity outright. And you hit those profitability goals, it means better quarters, more investment in the site, better customer outcomes for our customers, and everybody wins in those outcomes.
Love that. And you briefly touched on this in the answer, but those are some pretty incredible ROI numbers. But we both know that you don't get great ROI if you don't get adoption and usability, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest part, is getting people to trust it, use it, and build a culture around that. What separates the companies that you've seen, that adopted it successfully from those that stall out?
Yeah, for sure. And this comes in all different shapes and sizes, and I'll give you a couple of examples. I think one example is we build a relationship with a site. It can be a maintenance leader at a site, a reliability leader at a site, or sometimes just the plant superintendent outright. And they make the decision from their pool of funds to go and purchase a solution like Augury's. We might have a lot of success at that site, but now we actually have to work with that site and adjacent sites to go build followership and buy-in with the corporate entity to show them that what we've achieved at this particular facility is not an anomaly and can be replicated. And we have a lot of data to show you land with one site, you can move over to 2 to 3, and you start to actually build that momentum inside those corporate entities, right? That this is going to be repeatable ROI and durable ROI, as you were talking about. Now, the flip side is sometimes we get placed in touch with the head of manufacturing, the head of digital innovation. As we move more and more up the stack, sometimes it's those CIOs and CFOs that are making these purchases. And they very rightfully decide that they also need to invest in industrial AI solutions to achieve their goals. They make the decision to invest in a program like this one, but now you have the opposite problem, right? You have distributed sites all around the world. You have another good idea from headquarters, right, being pushed down on
Another
your
corporate
site.
initiative.
Yep, another corporate initiative, and sometimes you get a little bit of pushback, right? So I think what we've really learned, regardless of where that relationship starts, is you have to win champions both at the corporate level and the site level. Internally, we call it corp to site, right? Both of those relationships have to be deep and they have to be embedded. I think ultimately we believe that the data and the outcome should speak for themselves, but you can never replace the value that comes from physically getting on site, doing the demonstration, having those vocal champions, those followers that exist, that have basically built their own workflows around your offering and trust your offering. Those are the kinds of things that we put a lot of time into attention to at the beginning, and it continues to pay off for us going forward.
Love that. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the best technology in the world doesn't matter if the people closest to the machines don't believe in it or see how it helps them do their jobs. And it sounds like you all are hyper aware and in tune to that, and have built a culture and a process to make sure that you can get that buy-in up front, which is, I think, really important. And
that's exactly right. We have an entire team of folks here in Augury, our reliability success managers, where they are paired up to specific sites, not even the corporate entity, sometimes not even the buyer, but making sure that they're plugged in with the individual users and operators every single day to be able to walk those lines and know those lines and know how our solution is adding value every single day. So we put a lot of that investment in from the beginning and through the duration of the relationship to make sure that that connectivity stays in place.
love it. It's a people business at the end of the day, but we're heading into this world where there's a lot of AI and a lot of talking about what will the machines continue to do better and learn. And there's a lot of hype happening with AI. You all have done some pretty exciting things on that front, and maybe have more to come there. But from your perspective, where's AI creating real value in industrial environments, and where do you think people are maybe getting distracted?
Yeah, what a great question. So I think over the next 5 years, you're going to see this extraordinary moment when it comes to the collision of AI and the physical world that exists at your customers and our customers and all the places where our solutions are deployed. And even in the last couple of weeks, we've had the opportunity to announce kind of our new product offering out into the world, which we call the industrial AI workforce. So building on this evolution of this kind of machine health category leadership that Augury has built, we're moving incrementally up the stack, because much like you all, what we've realized is there is always going to be more data that exists in different data silos than any single operator, leader, owner, maintainer, et cetera, would be able to access and make sense of on their own. So what we really strive to do with the industrial AI workforce is we want to take this world-class machine health foundation that the Augury team has really assembled alongside our customers over the last 15 years. And then we want to combine it with operational data streams that might exist through your PLC, your MES, your CMMS, et cetera. Speaking to kind of our two-way relationship that we have, we want to combine all these different data streams, and we want to build specific persona-based agents for the likes of maintenance managers and process engineers and operations professionals, et cetera. Because we believe that if we can actually bring the data together into the hands of operators and break down those silos, then what they're going to be able to achieve is more than they might have thought possible. And that could be the difference between root causing a problem on a particular line over the course of 6 to 10 hours versus doing it in a matter of seconds. And we've already started to see some really exceptional customer use cases where things that might have taken a day or brought a line down for days or weeks, they're now being solved in the matter of minutes, which is an incredible transformation from even just a couple of months ago. So AI leaves us incredibly optimistic. But Nick, like the way you said it before is exactly right, which is at the end of the day, you have to start with the customer, start with the person in the loop. The human is always in the loop. How do you enable those humans, those professionals with all of that domain expertise to be successful in their craft?
Totally. I think any AI initiative that is grounded in real operational value for an end user is those are the ones we're seeing work really well today. Some of the abstract things that are supposed to happen in the above and on autopilot. I'm not sure I've seen a lot of those take off just yet. Maybe you've seen some of that, but that's where I've seen the overestimation kind of come into play, is when they try to do too much with too much unstructured data, instead of taking it to a discrete data set where they've got a lot of information. And yeah, so I'm also seeing a lot of folks that are like really excited about AI, but still skeptical because they've seen these tools being just anything technology, really overpromised before. And I think the credibility comes from showing where AI helps make your team better and not pretending it's going to replace folks or do something, that's not within the realm of the data sets that you have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I think as we talk to customers, one of the things that we really see and questions that we get is, how would we recommend that organizations that might not have deployed AI just yet go about starting, right? Because to your point, there's so many different tools and resources that are out there that it's difficult to identify which ones can really add immediate value, which ones are going to provide almost turnkey solutions, and which are ones that are maybe worth a pass in the near term. And I think there's all sorts of different pieces of advice out there, but at a minimum, I think you want to start with brands, companies, solution providers that maybe you know and trust already, because that core offering, maybe it was a CMMS platform, or maybe it was a machine health offering. Those core offerings were quite sound, and there have already been workflows inside these different sites that have been built on these high trust solutions. That's one piece of advice we give. And then I think the second piece of advice also is to think through who are some of the high trust folks in your network from maybe prior roles or sites that you've worked at that have had some success. There's a lot of lessons learned from people that have some dirt under their fingernails and some that have been battered and bruised a little bit trying to get these things off the ground. And I think it can really accelerate that learning curve for new operators here too. And then I think the last thing too, third, Rome wasn't built in a day. Right? It takes some time to deploy these things out. I think very often with the conversation around AI is also the conversation around speed. And there's this sense that if you don't get everything done today or tomorrow, you're just going to completely miss the boat. Well, AI itself is changing just as quickly, right? And, maybe one of the ways that I would suggest starting is to pick 2 or 3 specific discrete goals that you would like AI to help you achieve. And then once you've accomplished those, move on to the next 2 to 3 and do it just like you would with any large project in smaller bite-sized chunks until you start to see some of that organizational alignment take place.
Completely agree. Yeah, it's very much that same roadmap that worked for the folks who got digital transformation right in areas was not a very broad sweeping effort, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Speaking of broad sweeping efforts, it's one thing to prove value at a plant. It's another to scale across dozens or hundreds of sites, something that you all have a little bit of experience doing. What changes when machine health becomes an enterprise scale initiative?
Yeah, so when any kind of an investment like machine health lifts out of the domain of a site and gets deployed company-wide, Needless to say, and for the best possible reasons, you have a lot of corporate eyes on it, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of scrutiny about the investment that's made, the quality of the service delivery, how quickly do we install those devices on site, create connectivity, how quickly do we maintain that hardware? If there's an integration challenge, how quickly can we get engineers on site to fix those integrations as well, right? Service quality becomes elevated, and then ROI, 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 and value becomes the name of the game, right? I don't think anyone inside Augury whatsoever takes for granted the fact that there are some of the leading companies around the world that have made significant investments in this solution and have chosen to kind of orient many of their factory or industrial operations around our solution. We don't take that for granted at all. And we realize that we need to show up and continue to earn that trust every day of the year. Just like those individual operators and maintainers and process folks are doing the same thing for their customers. So as you move further up the stack and become a global standardized solution, you should welcome that scrutiny. You should expect your service quality standards to increase. And you constantly have to be focused on value. Every company under the sun is under its own constraints. And we need to make sure that we can continue to explain why we're there and the value that we're adding for our customers.
Absolutely. I know I have one question on this front that I know I've got quite a few folks listening here that are kind of top of mind for them is how do you prevent each site from reinventing the wheel when you're going through a rollout like this? Because there's a lot of opinionated folks in the reliability world, and some for better or worse.
Yep.
I think a lot of them have a lot of their own experience. And so how does that work in your ecosystem today?
For sure. We have some great examples of this, I think, in our installation base. And we have some examples in the other direction of some things that you want to avoid. One of the things that struck me, let's say you have a large organization, maybe 30 sites. There's the version of that organization where those 30 sites have always been part of that organization. They have similar culture. They look the same, standardized processes. People have moved between sites in their career. They're a little homogenous. Then on the flip side, you have large organizations where many of those sites were actually put together through maybe acquisitions over time, M&A, et cetera. And for good reason, they've been allowed to maintain a lot of those underlying cultural norms, right?
Yeah.
In that first example, it's a little bit easy. It tends to be a little bit more top-down, a little bit more process-oriented. Very often, those sorts of organizations have designated trainers, champions, digital transformation initiatives, and you can figure out existing process that you can kind of attach to and jump on that train and ride that train with it, and they've been through that before. Now, on the flip side, in some of those organizations that maybe are a little bit more balkanized, right, or a little bit more heterogeneous, where there are different cultures that exist across that footprint, you need to be a little bit more sensitive to it. And that is not a bad thing per se. In some customers, we have an example of every operator on site has access to Augury data because that works for that site. They disseminate data down into every user's hands, and that's how they operate that plant. But there's other sites where maybe that data sits with line supervisors or shift supervisors. And that's how they've chosen to operate because in that particular country, for that particular product, at that particular site, that's what works well for them. And these kinds of technology tools and solutions, they have to amplify the people in seat and their ability to get work done. And if you come in sort of orthogonally and you're messing up the way that they do business, or you're running counter to their norms, you can have the best solution in the world, but you're not going to be successful. And you run the risk of being right. And you run the risk of being organ rejected. But at the end of the day, maybe the one commonality between both those things is you have to start with trust. I think our founder says it really, really well. Sure, we've sold machine health offerings. Today we're selling the industrial AI workforce. But at the end of the day, we are really trading in trust. Trust needs to be earned, and trust can be lost in an instant, and we can never lose sight of that.
Completely agree. We're birds of a feather on that front.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that continues to grow, and I don't think it's going anywhere, is just the workforce. The major workforce challenges around labor, and it's getting tight. We've got a lot of retirement, skilled labor walking out the door. How does machine health fit into that workforce conversation?
Yeah, Nick, you're talking about the silver tsunami, and this comes up. This comes up in every customer conversation we have. And you and I both spend a lot of time at customer sites, and we know that some of these customer sites are in places where you don't have necessarily access to thousands or tens of thousands of potential candidates to come on board and backfill some of those workers. So we see that expertise leaving those sites and not coming back. And I think for a lot of our customers, that's actually becoming the single most urgent constraint to keeping the lights on and keeping those businesses operational. We think about machine health because machine health allows the team in place to do more than they would have been doing otherwise, right? And then taking that one step further for machine health to the industrial AI workforce, what we get really excited about is when you start to think about how individual folks across process reliability, maintenance, operations, et cetera, are spending their time. A lot of the time for a shift of 6 workers, 9 workers, 12 workers, regardless of subsector, is spent gathering data and making sense of it to get to a decision. So if we're able to lean on this combination of the machine data and the operational data and help some leaner teams do more with the teams that they have in place, then they're going to be able to keep the lights on at those sites. They will solve problems faster. They will create value for their companies, and they're going to be able to better serve their customers. It doesn't necessarily go out into the world and bring more folks on site, but it allows them to keep those sites open with leaner, more focused team focused on the places where the problems are happening and making the best use of the time on that shift.
Completely agree. Now, before we wrap up, I got, if you're talking to an industrial leader listening on this, listening to the pod here, who feels behind on machine health or AI, predictive maintenance, what honest advice would you give them today? They've got, how do you suggest they go and tackle this internally?
Yeah, great question. I would say if I spend a third to half my time sitting kind of kneecap to kneecap with different customers, nobody feels like they have this figured out. So first and foremost, you're in great company. There's a lot of conversations happening about AI, but the truth is, I think every organization around the world and every sector is still trying to figure out what that means for them. So you might not be behind as you think you are. That's the first thing I'd say. I think the second thing is I can almost guarantee that there are folks in your network that even if they're 1 to 2 steps ahead of you, might have had some pretty incredible aha moments and realizations or lessons learned that you and your organization can benefit from as well. So that's probably the second. Don't be shy to go out and ask for help, even inside our business, right? There are teams inside the business that are kind of on the cutting edge and learning new things every day. And we lean on different mechanisms inside Augury to make sure that the left hand of the business is talking to the right, because there's some really cool innovations that are happening day to day, week to week. And then I think the third thing is, there are folks like you, Nick, and me and the teams that we represent, that it's our job to think about AI and AI deployments every single day. So to the extent that you have trusted partners, trusted vendors, service providers, et cetera, that you think could be value additive for you when you're trying to design your own roadmap, by all means, just reach out. I think there's nothing more than the folks on your side and our side would be interested in talking about than exactly this. And the truth is, no 2 deployments look the same. No 2 problems look the same. I think the best companies are going to figure out how to take a consultative approach and come up with something that looks right for you and your site and the specific problems that you yourself are having.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I feel it's very much part of our duty and obligation to help, folks share those wins across industry and help them understand at least how to make new mistakes, if nothing else. So
yeah, higher quality mistakes.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, Elan, this is great. I think the big takeaway here is machine health is not just maintenance technology conversation anymore. It's a leadership conversation. It's how companies protect uptime, scale knowledge, support their teams, make better decisions across the enterprise. And thank you again so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Nick. Great to be here.